Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be talking about Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stuart, which is a novel set in 1980s Glasgow during the Thatcher era, when there were many men who were out of work and the entire city was kind of falling into poverty. And we are following the Bain family as they live in public housing and battle themes of poverty, hopelessness and alcoholism. And in my opinion, this book could also have been called Agnes Bain, because she's the character around whom everything revolves. Agnes is this very gorgeous, charismatic woman who puts a lot of emphasis on always looking good, always leaving the house in an immaculate state, and she wants her family to do the same. And to achieve that, she buys a lot of clothes and other things in the catalogue on credit. And on top of that, she is also an alcoholic who drinks away all the money that is meant to sustain her and her kids. And throughout Shuggie Bain, we see how Agnes goes from a high-functioning alcoholic to a non-functioning one, and how her sickness affects her family. And to achieve this, Douglas Stuart chose to not use a fixed point of view. Instead, he shows the point of view of the different family members. So firstly, we have Agnes, and we see how she herself views her and her problem and just her self-awareness or lack thereof. We have a perspective of her ex-husband Shug, who sleeps around and pretty early on leaves the family only to come back to get sexual favors from Agnes. We have her two oldest kids, Catherine and Leek, who are in their late teens and whose only goal is to get out of the house, and who don't really see Agnes anymore as a mother, but just her sickness. They only see the alcoholism and not the person behind the sickness. And lastly, we have Shuggie, Agnes's youngest son, and we join the Bain family when Shuggie is at a preschool level, so he's 4 or 5, and we see Agnes from a child's perspective and how a child views a parent who is alcoholic. So through all these perspectives, we get a very varied, fleshed out, three-dimensional picture of Agnes, and Agnes's point of view as well as Shuggie's are the most interesting, which is probably why it's called Shuggie Bain, because a story about alcoholism isn't something new. You see it in a lot of TV shows that one character turns to alcohol at some point, and it's also mentioned in different fiction, and so that doesn't make this book unique. What was really compelling was just seeing a child's view on such a horrible situation. And at times in the media you see how children get taken from their family homes in real life, and how children actually seem to want to stay with their families even when both parents are addicts. And I think for someone who's never been in that situation, it can be quite difficult to comprehend what's going on behind the scenes. And Douglas Stuart really manages to kind of show the reader how a child of an addict sees their parents, and that a child can look past the addiction and still see the human below the sickness. By showing how Shuggie views Agnes, I, as a reader, also started feeling a lot of sympathy for her, just because I could see the person she could have been, because Shuggie is so hopeful and, well, naive, and he never stops hoping that his mother will get better. And so I did too, but at the same time I of course also felt so angry and frustrated with her for putting her children and her entire family through this ordeal. So in general, this was a book that evoked a lot of emotions in me. It is a very dark, gritty story that at times is not fun to follow, and we have a lot of difficult content that is of course discussed. We have of course substance abuse and addiction, just poverty in general, suicide than sexual violence or sexual abuse of women and children. So in general, it is a very, very dark book, which is also why I could understand, or which is why I don't think this book is for everyone, especially as on top of all that, it's 450 pages long, and it's 450 pages of darkness without many happy moments to feel lighthearted. And the book also doesn't really have a plot. It's more of following the journey Agnes and Shuggie go on between Shuggie's fifth birthday up to his mid-teens, and just how he's trying to keep his mother alive and happy and trying to keep himself alive. But if you are able to stomach such difficult topics and such a dark environment, I would really highly recommend this book. I also want to add that Douglas Stuart grew up in the same kind of environment as Shuggie did. So normally I am a proponent of keeping the author and their work separate, but I think it's just interesting to mention it in this case because Douglas Stuart is covering such a difficult, complex topic, and by him having experienced the same thing and maybe also showing a part of his story through Shuggie's eyes makes me think that it's a pretty realistic depiction, and one that is respectful towards all sufferers from alcoholism or the people who live with people who are alcoholics. To make the whole story seem more real and immersive, Douglas Stuart wrote Shuggie Bain in the Glasgow vernacular, and I didn't read the book but listened to the audiobook, and I think the narrator already toned the accent or the dialect down by quite a bit, but still in the beginning I was kind of struggling to understand certain parts, and I remember having to listen to a certain chapter 4 times before I kind of got what was going on. So if you are also a person who struggles with accents and dialects, just be forewarned, but I think it adds so much to the story, and I don't think it should be that problematic when reading, apart from certain sayings and objects that I mentioned that might be very specific to Glasgow and to Glasgow in the 80s. Overall, Shuggie Bain was one of my favorite books of 2020, and I think it deserves all the accolades it received, and I think it should be a book that's talked about a lot more, and it's a book I really hope more people will pick up and enjoy. In Germany, where I live, the audiobook for Shuggie Bain can be found on Spotify, so if you're interested in reading the book or just enjoying it in general, I would recommend that you check out Spotify and see whether it's also available where you are located. It's over 18 hours long, so you'll have a very long span of time to enjoy it or just to experience it. I want to thank you so much for watching this video until the end. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel, and hopefully I'll see you again next week. Bye.